This is Jourdan Poyer, safety for the Buffalo Bills, and you are now listening to Cover One Buffalo Podcast. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, and tonight, Aaron Quinn, alongside me, my partner in crime. How we doing?
I'm doing great, man. Bills are 2-0. It feels right. Everything's right in the world, and I'm ready to talk to you about going 3-0.
Yeah, I am excited to get into that. We'll get to that in a moment, and it's weird. It kind of felt like a warm-up game in the first couple, and I know people have talked about that. They were real games, but I can't lie. I'm not sad that we got two of our lesser opponents on the schedule in the first 2 weeks, and we're able to kind of get into this, and we're certainly going to find out how real this team is very quickly here. The way you're going to find that out is tonight. Our show is presented by our presenting sponsor, Uncle Jumbo's. Aaron and I had an awesome time getting to meet the Castorius family out there last week in Clarence, and it's really a family operation. You got dad and two sons, distilling good beverages for you guys. Make sure you're out there checking them out, finding their good wares. Aaron and I both tried it. I can't lie. The stuff that's over top of my head here is fantastic. The blueberry lemonade, I was not prepared. I've been talking about that, and I'm paid to say good things about this company. It's really, really good. It was the first time I got a chance to try it. That stuff was really tasty.
Yeah, we're actually blowing through our supplies. So I'm going to have to head back out
free.
there.
Yeah, we got it. Some free samples to be able to check it out here. It's moving quickly in my house as well. We actually have a new sponsor for tonight who's going to be sponsoring this show. And just if anybody else is interested in reaching out, sponsoring a show on Cover One, we made some exciting announcements, bringing over Disguised Coverage and the Hoof podcast. A lot of talented people joining the Cover One staff. We have a lot of opportunities to be able to join there. And tonight, Paul Bannock with Keller Williams Realty is sponsoring the show, the first half of the show tonight. With Paul Bannock Realty serving as a resource in the community, we're here for you before, during, and well after the close. I love that phrasing because it kind of reminded me of the process with Sean McDermott and how much they take into account the locker room, the culture, the people. You always hear about like the wives of players. I couldn't believe it that like Kim Pegula called them directly and that they would be reaching out to them the moment they got into town and making families feel welcome and a part of it. And, people think that, it doesn't matter. These are millionaires. They're getting paid a ton of money. That stuff matters. Like people want to be in a place that you feel comfortable and feel like your family's being taken care of. And while I'm, out there grinding, putting in my work to do my job, my wife and kids and everyone's going to be taken care of and supported. That stuff matters. And when you're re-signing players or players are trying to decide, I heard some good things here. Is that real? And other guys are going to vouch for it. That stuff matters. So I thought that was a great way, Paul Bannock and the Keller Williams Realty team kind of talking through those kind of things.
And in my personal experience in real estate stuff too, it does matter. I've had bad agents in the past, and we bought a few houses now and sold a few houses, and when you don't have that type of care, it matters. And then you give business to the people that do care about you through and through. And, when you find a good agent, they're your agent. You might do one or two deals with that person. So that's a cool way to kind of separate yourself from the others.
Yeah, it's something that, does matter to you. So make sure you're checking them out and support all of our sponsors. We really enjoy being able to bring the content to you guys, and they help us do that. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Rams and the Bills in this game. It's actually one of the only 2-0 games. I think it was listed. It's the only 2-0 versus 2-0 game on Sunday. There's another one on Monday night with the Chiefs and the Ravens that I think Bills fans will be pretty interested in. But it's going to be a marquee matchup. This is going to be a big time game that is going to be a lot of fans around the country that are going to be, kind of curious. How real is this? What's going on with, these two teams? And are the Bills really as good as people are talking about it? And it's funny, when we're going through this, we've had different guests on to preview the games. We like to bring somebody on who is an expert specialist in each of the teams that we talk about. And it's funny, the last time we had this guest on, she was covering the Carolina Panthers.
Right.
And now we're going to be bringing her on to cover the LA Rams. So Jourdan, Rodrigue, I know literally coming out to your car after covering the team in practice. Thank you for making time for us, Jourdan.
I know. You see that glow, guys? I'm sweaty as hell right now. It is hot in Southern California. I actually am a little envious of your fall, and I know it is shocking that as I came from the Carolina Panthers that I did not join the Buffalo Bills beat. Instead, I went out to cover the Rams.
Yeah, it's a rare exception. Hey, you're one of the few people who did not follow that pipeline north. We got Marcel Louis-Jacques, so we got a 50-50 deal. It worked out pretty well, and I can't imagine you're upset being out in LA.
No, I'm not. I do miss my guy Marcel, though. He's the best.
Yeah,
we'll take good care of him for you.
I am going to rub it in a little bit. The weather here in Buffalo today was like a perfect 75-degree fall day, just enough sunshine. So,
oh my gosh,
it's a shame you can't come out this week for the game because I think the weather's going to continue to be nice all throughout the week here.
I know. I'm so disappointed. I was so looking forward to seeing you guys in person and maybe recording in person and getting some wings and lots of beer and beef on weck. And man, I love Buffalo, guys. People who are just now meeting me via this show, y'all should know I love Buffalo. So I'm pretty excited about this matchup.
We'll get into the details here. For anyone who hasn't checked out Jourdan's work, Jourdan does fantastic work for The Athletic in LA. You can find her at Jourdan Rodrigue on pretty much every social media platform that she puts her work out in. So make sure you're finding her and going out there and checking out everything that she's doing. We'll jump right in. We were just talking about the fact that this is the only 2-0 versus 2-0 matchup on Sunday. It's something where I think a lot of teams and other fans, knew of both teams, weren't sure, were the Rams going to bounce back after last year, were the Bills going to be able to repeat from their playoff matchup. And now coming in here, we'll start on the offensive side of the ball. I think that I compared this to the Bills defense, where it's not necessarily a bunch of superstar athletes or individuals, but everyone fits their role so well and everyone plays their part just right. We'll start with some of the receivers that are out there. The Bills fans, one of the few guys who have gotten away recently who's flourished in their new role, Robert Woods, new richly compensated man. How is things working out with that receiving core now? Kind of cobbling together that Brandon Cooks role and a little more prominent placement for Kupp and Woods.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, because any week, and fantasy football people usually hate me because I can never tell them which receiver is going to be the number one receiver on any given week. You just don't know, because these guys really do operate as number one receiver by committee, which I think is so fascinating of a layout for them, because you hear about it all the time, but seeing it in action, which you really did, especially in the opening quarter of last week's game against Philadelphia, you really saw what it looks like when they're getting not just Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp involved, but now they're gonna mess around a little bit with Josh Reynolds and with rookie Van Jefferson, who is really, really promising so far.
Loved him down at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he's just he's just fantastic, and what a good person too. I mean, and really, it's very much a Robert Woods mold. I mean, they're happy that they've extended Robert Woods, and that they also have all of these guys around him who are Robert Woods-esque in terms of Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Josh Reynolds, guys who can do just about everything, who somehow did together like some of the best pass blocking and run blocking receivers on planet Earth, all in the same offense. And it's just really not fair, guys. I'm going to tell you right now. So it's been really interesting to watch how they all sort of orbit around Jared Goff. I get it. The blonde hair kind of gets people thinking sunshine, but he really is kind of the center of the solar system in terms of how they orbit and rotate their tight ends, their receivers, and their running backs all around him. And, it really could be any one of those guys who has the big day on Sunday. And so, if it's a headache enough for me to tell fantasy football people this, imagine what it feels like to have to try to defend it. So I don't envy that.
No, I think it's a perfect example that this past week, the Bills had trouble with Mike Gesicki. And for any Bills fans who aren't prepared for it, this next run is now going to be Tyler Higbee, Darren Waller, Jonnu Smith, and Travis Kelce. So it's not stopping anytime soon. With Tyler Higbee, I wasn't sure last year was that last 5 games just because Kupp was out and he got all the volume that he did, or was he really ready to step into this role? And he's been impressive again in these first couple games.
Yeah, what happened was they weren't getting anything going on the ground. What was really happening was they were really struggling to find a rhythm, and because they weren't able to the rushing attack, they weren't able to set up any of the other things that they like to do in the passing game. So Tyler Higbee and Gerald Everett, they played so season that we thought that maybe that was the full direction that they were shifting into. They still are opening up with 11 personnel as their main offensive package, but Tyler Higbee is really thriving so far. 3 touchdowns last week on 5 touches. And you know what, guys? I'm going to put the tinfoil hat on here for a minute, because Sean McVay knows very well what's going on with the health of those 2 linebackers over on the Buffalo defense, who are so fantastic against tight ends. My guy, Joe Buscaliaga, I can never say his last name, but he's awesome.
Me neither.
He was telling me about how great these 2 linebackers are, especially against tight ends, and how limited tight ends are when those 2 guys are healthy. So I'm got a little bit of a theory going, where I feel like Sean McVay knew exactly what he was doing in putting that much tape of Tyler Higbee out onto the field, knowing that there was such limited no preseason tape and such limited regular season tape so far, sending a little bit of a flare up to show Sean McDermott exactly what they're capable of with the tight end. Now, if you try to play in tight to adjust to a tight end in that way, what's Sean McVay going to do? Play 4 wide receiver sets. So I feel like this is a little bit of a chess match. The chess match, I think, with Sean McDermott, who he just respects the hell out of, I think started last week.
No, and it's going to be really interesting how that matches up. You mentioned that, last year was almost exclusively 11 personnel for the Rams. You actually see a little bit more 12 so far. So they have tried to mix in Gerald Everett and some of those pieces. I think one of the biggest shifts fans aren't used to is, this had been Todd Gurley's backfield for such an established period of time. And now I think maybe fans assumed it was going to be Cam Akers, but you've seen, you've seen Malcolm Brown, you've seen, Darrell Henderson going through and being able to just kind of cobble that together. It's interesting where that goes. So one, how is Cam Akers' health looking? Do we think we're going to see him this weekend? And if not, how have they managed that 3-headed, role in the backfield?
I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't at least try to see if Cam Akers is available on Sunday. What happened with him was he separated some rib cartilage, which sounds like insanely painful, and as I hear it, is insanely painful. We're not going to get into a Tyrod Taylor situation, bless his heart, and hope he's okay.
Yeah, let's hope not.
That they're not going to risk. Oh my God, they're not going to risk it in any way with Cam. They've got a young guy out of SMU, Xavier Jones, who they could activate if they need to. And so that's someone who, there is literally no tape on if Cam is just on the south side of health in their regard. And then Malcolm Brown, I think, will play. Darrell Henderson was huge last week in their offense, and something to keep track of in the league in passing to running backs and getting running backs working in the passing game. This year, they are doing it quite a bit. And I asked Sean McVay about this and why the sudden pivot and why the change. And he was like, because I wasn't making the right decision last year, essentially. And I was like, oh.
Okay.
So I think they're going to want to try to, especially Darrell Henderson, a lot more involved in the passing game. You saw there was one overthrow from Jared Goff yesterday, but you saw he caught a couple of great passes. And, it's very much something to be aware of, not just on the ground from these running backs, but also in the air.
No, getting the ball out quickly was really where the Miami got back into the game against the Bills. That early on, they were getting pressure, they were getting to him, and that's obviously the entire McVay scheme. And where Goff thrives is when he's making those reads quickly, knows where to go with the ball, get in and out before the defense can get to him. So, speaking of defense, we'll turn over to that side of the ball.
Yeah, so I want to get into this because I think a lot of Bills fans are looking at this LA defense, and obviously in the front seven, there's one guy that everybody's talking about. We don't have to get into details. We're going to talk about him ad nauseum all week, Aaron Donald. I hate watching it on tape. I don't want to see it. It's terrifying. But I want to get your opinion as somebody that's embedded with this team on some of the other names. I know Michael Brockers, right? I know of Leonard Floyd, and I'm interested to see kind of how he's doing because I know a lot of the Bears fans were pretty frustrated with his draft position and not really living up to it there. I'd like to know how he's doing there. But some of these names along this front seven that maybe Bills fans don't know about and should be keeping an eye on going into Sunday, they might cause us some problems.
Yeah, that's a great question because one of the things that they're doing this year that's a little bit different in Brandon Staley's defense is they are, of course, I think should be getting a little bit more pressure off the edge, which so far they have not been very, they've not been very flashy in terms of getting pressure off the edge. Where Leonard Floyd is really succeeding, though, is against the run. That dude is setting an edge like he's 5 years younger than he actually is. And I think that's something really important, especially as, they want to make sure that Josh Allen stays out of rhythm and that he can, let's say he does, cut and run, he can be contained. That's something that they are really emphasizing today with Josh Allen is just when you think the play is over, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's over. It's over when he's either on the ground or the ball is lining up at the hash mark. So that's something that they really are keying in on. The other thing that they do on defense, and so you're not going to see this be flashy on the stats page, but a lot of the ways that they key up, their front specifically allows a lot of the linebacker play and nickel play, which is at times Troy Hill. And then sometimes they'll bring in like a bigger safety to assume that role and then maybe play a dime as well. But what they're doing is they're allowing him to run clean and come clean through gaps, which is really, really important because you don't always see an off-ball linebacker like Micah Kaiir, who is definitely someone to keep an eye on for Sunday. You don't always see him consistently week over week, like leading the team in tackles, for example. You don't often see the off-ball linebacker like making these big splash plays, but what the front is doing is really occupying space and occupying and forcing additional gapping so that the linebacker can run really clean and run free behind and then make those physical plays. That's something that's really important because these two linebackers, Kenny Young and Micah Kaiir, they're relatively unknown. I mean, this is really the first time that this tandem is starting together. And Micah Kaiir is coming off of his second NFL start ever. So this is something where he is certainly not a household name, but he's playing like he's always been one. And I think that that's something that's really important. These two guys can cover really well as well. So, I know we're probably going to get to the secondary because how can we not talk about Jalen Ramsey in a minute? But in terms of the middle of the field, that was like the biggest concern entering the season for the Los Angeles Rams defense. The way that Micah Kaiir and Kenny Young have showed up, I mean, they're just kicking butt. So they're very, very fun to watch. If people didn't have a rooting interest in this game and just wanted to watch some really promising linebacker play, I'd say turn on that game.
Honestly, it's funny because when I was watching, I kept thinking back to the first couple of years of Sean McDermott's defense where it wasn't household names, right? Like a lot of the guys, even probably still like Matt Milano, we like him. I think really good football people like him, but the average fans of other fan bases don't necessarily know a lot about Matt Milano. When I was looking at the LA Rams defense, it reminded me of the last couple of years of a Sean McDermott defense where the sum of the parts is greater than the individuals, and they're playing within the scheme, and the scheme's solid. They had Carson Wentz quite confused, and we'll get into the secondary a little bit because I think everyone looks at Jalen Ramsey, and I don't want to give it away too much because our matchup show dropping tomorrow, Eric's going to break into some of the coverage looks and stuff, but they had Carson Wentz, who's seen a lot of looks in the NFL, quite confused with a lot of the coverage. And I think people see Jalen Ramsey and think, oh, it's going to be man-to-man. It's going to be him on Diggs all day. I got bad news for fans. I think we're going to see a lot of disguised coverages. And I think they're going to try to confuse Josh Allen and make him do some things with his feet and find those spots in the zone. And as a Bills fan, we haven't seen a lot of that yet. I don't know how that's going to go for Josh. But talk about that secondary. And obviously, we'll hear about Jalen Ramsey, but some of the other guys there in those other parts, because it takes a full secondary to confuse a Carson Wentz and to disguise those types of coverages.
Yeah, you said it so well just now in talking about what they're doing well with Jalen specifically. And we kind of got those clues that he was not going to just be your guy on an island every game. Instead, they're like, we're going to look at him as more of a master key to what we can really do with this secondary instead of like the guy you kind of put out off to the side and hope, no one throws that way, right? And so it's so interesting, the dynamic ability they have in the secondary. They're playing faster than they have in a while, first of all. That's part of what, the scheme is, and part of what they're trying to do up front and free them up to run a little bit more. And they're also, like you said, disguising things so much more than they had. What they're doing in practice, too, is pattern matching. So they'll take plays that they know a team is running. And it's a very college thing. It's like a very Nick Saban-y type of thing where they'll take plays that they know the opponent is running. They'll go through all the various looks and reads, and they'll understand at which point, which look is going to give them an ability to make a play on the ball. And that's what you saw with Darius Williams, who's really a promising young corner on the opposite side of Jourdan, when he was able to basically jump that end zone route and make a play on the ball. And it was like almost like Carson Wentz didn't even see him. Well, because if they're not pattern matching and switching coverage instantly to kind of adhere to the play instead of like necessary assignment, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to kind of break away from quote unquote the box that you're in and really try to do that because you know what's coming. So there's a lot of enjoyment from these guys. Troy Hill has had a heck of a last two games at nickel. The thing about what the Rams are doing is they're nickel like almost the whole damn game. And that's just not something you had really seen a ton of in the past. You'd seen a lot. The Rams obviously had Nicole Roby-Coleman and played him a lot. But in terms of like, Troy Hill does not come off the field, and they're even using him, and he's a little bit on the slider side. They're even using him in their star package as well to kind of clog up the middle of the field, even when you have a bigger body coming through the slot because of how well he can tackle. So it's just really, really interesting to me how dynamic this secondary has become, and in such a short time, right? Like 2 weeks. And I know I'm sounding like I'm babbling and all of that, but like, for me, I grew into the NFL covering Ron Rivera and defensive football, right? So I freaking love defensive football. I'm a big Sean McDermott fan. Like, I love defensive football. So this has been so great for me to watch because it's Staley's blending a lot of college concepts and college practice concepts too into an NFL situational, which makes it to me extremely fun, not only for these guys to really adjust into, but also gives them a sense of autonomy and freedom within the system.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Thank you. I have no more questions about the defense. I'm excited for this matchup, though.
I think it's going to be a great matchup, by the way. Like, this is the first. I don't think the Eagles are good at all. So this is going to be really, really fun, I think, because to me, this is the Bills' first real test. And in a lot of ways, it's also the Rams' real test because who the hell knew what was going to happen with the Cowboys, honestly? So this is really the first one where it's like, okay, this is a team, the Bills team that you guys are covering, they're built to go deep and make it an actual run. Like, they're built so well, right? Shout out to my guy, Brandon Bean. Like, they are built very well. And so now it's like, okay, Rams, you look exciting, right? You came out of the gate and kicked the door down last week. Can you do it against an actual good team? So I'm really excited to cover this game.
And we have that same measuring stick, right? Like, this is the first, it's the same measuring stick for us, where we're going against a good team and a good offense that can do some damage to us and a sound defense. So I think the measuring stick's there for both teams. So it should be a real exciting game.
Well, and I certainly, we were joking about it before you jumped on, that I'm not sad that the Bills got two of their easier schedule matchups early on to kind of warm up and get rolling into this. I'm not going to, apologize for it, but now it's real. Now this is going to be a test.
I'm also not sad that this is the second East Coast trip for the LA Rams. I think that also, if we got to play them, I want to play them traveling east twice.
Yeah, within 8 days, LA to Philly, Philly back to LA to Buffalo in 8 days. I'll take it. If Aaron Donald can get tired from anything, maybe it's that. Maybe jet lag is his kryptonite.
I have yet to see him be human in any way. So
yeah.
You guys are going to luck out there.
I'm guessing this ain't going to be the one. But before we let you out of here, out of here, give us a prediction. What do you think we're going to see on Sunday?
You guys are so mean. You know I hate picking against the Bills. Come on. Oh, gosh. Okay. I got to say, I'm really excited because I think this game actually, I know both defenses are so good or look like they should be really good, but I really think this game's going to come down to, like, who has the ball last. I'm going to have to give it to the Rams. I'm still new on the beat, so I don't want to get in trouble with the home crowd here.
No. Believe me, it's anytime it's a 2.5 point spread, that means that it's legit.
I'm so excited. I think the Rams by a field goal, so that's something to hang your hat on.
Okay, I like it. I'll
take it.
Again, everybody who's not, go out, find Jourdan's work. Awesome, fantastic coverage at The Athletic. You can find her at Jourdan Rodrigue in pretty much every social media platform. Always a fun follow. You're great to go back and forth with everybody. I hope the screen window interview went well today. That picture cracked me up. For anyone who didn't notice, the Rams laptop that they do their Zoom calls went down, and they literally were asking the media to interview Jourdan Goff through a window in a room somewhere.
Yeah, it was wild, man.
It's like prison interviews.
Yeah, it really is. It's like it's a sign of the times here.
Well, thank you very much, Jourdan. Appreciate it. Hope you have a good evening, and hope we have a good game on Sunday.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Jourdan's always fantastic to be able to get together and talk. And as we kind of pivot here, I think it's funny. It's the first time we've had a guest on that didn't pick the Bills to win. And it's the first time that's been legit. This is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a really tough matchup against an undefeated team who laid the wood to Philadelphia last week, 37-19. They're coming off confident and for a reason.
Yeah, it is a good team. I think it's so early in the season. Sean McDermott talks about this all the time, that he's not going to know his team till November. And I think Sean McVay probably feels the same way, that he doesn't quite know his team. So it's hard to really, I go back and look at those first two games trying to get prepared for this show. Are they the team that we saw the first 2 weeks? I'm not sure. I think there's some problems with the Cowboys, and they got off to a slow start, especially on defense. I'm not sold on them. I think there's a lot of problems with Philadelphia. And if people are going to discredit the Bills' victories based on their opponents, then I'll give that to the Rams, that same measure. And I think Jourdan's correct in that this is a measuring stick, and really is for both these teams. So I think that's really where my excitement is even if it is the score that she predicts and it's a field goal close game. I know Bills fans won't want to lose, but if you're going to drop a game and it's going to be a close game to a top tier team in the NFC, I think that there's going to be a segment of the fans that are going to kill me on Twitter because there's no moral victories. But I think where you're in a measuring stick game like that early in the year, I'll take it. I will take a close game. But obviously, I'm going to pick the Bills to win at the end of this.
We'll get to that in a moment. As we go through here, our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight tonight. We're going to talk about the linebackers a little bit. I know there's a lot of questions. Maybe a pleasant surprise today. You saw both Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano practicing. Matt Milano with no restrictions. He was a full participant in practice. Tremaine Edmonds was a limited participant with a non-contact red jersey, but was doing an awful lot. A longer injury list today. So a couple things I'm curious to see as the week progresses, but I was certainly encouraged to see both of them on the practice field. If there's a chance that we have, I'm going to say it looks likely that we have Matt Milano. If he's a full participant, that means they're planning on him playing right now. That certainly is really encouraging.
Did the team list him? Did they list him as limited though? Even though all the reporters said, I was confused because the team listed him, I think, as limited in the injury report, but then all the reports from everybody said he was doing everything. So I was a little confused there. I'll have to go back and look.
But no, that is important to monitor. It
is going to be important to monitor. I put out a tweet, and I thought it was interesting that Edmonds was the one in the red contact jersey, because I really thought with the hamstring that Milano would be brought along a lot slower in this process, and that we would probably, if we were only going to see one of these guys, that it was going to be Edmonds first. But seeing 100%. Edmonds still in the contact jersey, and somebody brought up the point, well, it's his shoulder, so there's contact. But I'm pretty sure in my time following this Sean McDermott, even if it's soft tissue, they're keeping, if the guy is truly limited, they're keeping him in that contact jersey, even if it's not a contact injury. So I'm not sure. I think the jersey is more of an indicator where a guy's at. than the injury report that they're giving us.
I agree 100%. I mean, it's reasonable speculation as the reason. Like, that's not crazy. But the fact that Edmonds was in the non-contact jersey and Milano wasn't, you have to take that on face value that Edmonds or Milano is further along in his recovery and closer to playing. Like that, I think that's a direct correlation.
Yes. And some of this might be kind of, I didn't even think about it until Jourdan said the conspiracy theory about the tight ends. Some of this might be Sean McDermott putting this out there that both of them could be going game time to put that in McVay's head and maybe alter his plays, even if it's altering the first scripted plays, right? And trying to get some type of, this is going to be an advantage all week in the media. We know how Sean McDermott is. He's not giving anything that he doesn't want the other team and the people in the media to see. So there might be some of that going on behind the scenes.
No, I had that back and forth with a fan earlier tonight on Twitter that there could be some gamesmanship here in what they're showing, what they're exposing. Even the opposite, asking, "Hey, do you think sometimes that Blueberry Lemonade's so good?" Hey, so that some fans are even asking, like, "Hey, are they going to go and try to show that, hey, maybe this guy's dinged up. You guys might have an advantage here, and really it's just a rest day or whatever it is." And I don't think they're ever going to fabricate anything, but I do think that he takes strategic, vision into account in the what they present, what they show, what they don't show. So it's not crazy to assume that. And I think we talked about it that Tyrel Dodson and AJ Klein did fine. Both of them had some flaws. Both of them had some nice flashes. There's no difference in having Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano on the field. If the two of them are both playing, it is a material upgrade on this defense. So no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about when this defense has all of its parts. You're talking, it is a top 5 defense in the NFL. I don't care if they've gotten off to a slow start and they had that. Obviously, they had the rough half against the Jets because of the injuries. You've seen the decline in this defense when you look at the PFF gradings or whatever DVOA, whatever rating you want to look at that justifies what a team's doing without watching them. It's been since the linebackers got hurt. When you bring these guys back in, I mean, we talk about it with Milano all offseason about the Bills have to resign him because when he's not in, it's a big part. And then you take away Tremaine Edmonds too. I mean, geez, you're just like cutting off an arm and then trying to go play a game, and that's not going to work. So I think we need at least one of them back this week to really lighten that burden, because Jared Goff is going to get the ball out quick. The middle of the field is going to be where this game is decided, right? They're going to have all these crossing routes. They're going to have the high-low concepts. They're going to have Higbee running around. It was fine to get by with Dotson and Klein last week. I don't want to continue to get by with that. Those guys are rotational guys. They're not guys I want to put out there with studs like the LA Rams. And McVay will eat that apart. He's going to give them so many different looks and confuse them in so many ways. Eric had posted on Twitter one of the screens from the Miami game. And you saw both Dotson and Klein just take the pulling guard. They just ate that pulling guard, and that screen went the other way for whatever it was, 13, 15 yards. McVay seeing that, he's going to eat that all day. You know what I mean? If it's Dotson and Klein, if it's Edmonds and Milano, even if they pull on that, they have the athleticism to get it. That's the great thing about them, is even when they make mistakes, that athleticism shines through, and they still make mistakes, but not at the click that Dotson and Klein are.
I know you wanted to bring up one last player here in the player spotlight as well that's been getting a little bit of a hard time, and that you actually heard both Frazier and McDermott comment on it. What are your thoughts on what we're going to see from Levi Wallace?
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring up Levi Wallace, because obviously there's some people on Twitter that have been bashing on him, and then to hear the coaches speak about him directly, I don't disagree with what both Sean McDermott and Levi Wallace said, Leslie Frazier said. Levi Wallace has to make some plays. I don't know that he's ever going to be that guy. He's not a guy that attacks the ball in air. He's a guy that's going to be, you saw it this weekend against Miami, that a lot of the completions that went against him were pinpoint throws by Ryan Fitzpatrick, and great catches by the wide receivers as well. I mean, we're playing against NFL talent, but he was in position on a lot of those receptions. I think a lot of times we were watching the broadcast and we just see how often he's behind the guy catching the ball or making the tackle of the guy catching the ball, and we say, oh man, he's just getting trashed on today. When you go back and pull it back and look a little bit, I counted maybe 2 of those plays that he really got burnt on or beat on. One was bad. It was a 20-yard gain. That's a toxic differential play. That's something we talk about. That's something we'll talk about later. That's going to come in big time in this game. The rest of it, I think, was pretty much good position, better throw, better play by the wide receiver. And that's going to happen. He's across from Trey White. Guys, if you're going to have an option to throw, it's not going to be to Trey White. You're going to go towards Levi Wallace. And we have to keep in mind, Josh Norman was pretty much entrenched at the cornerback 2 until he got hurt. So we're dealing with a cornerback 3 right now. And I think the Bills have been trying to fix that cornerback 2 since Levi Wallace has been here. And there's nothing against Levi. I think he's a fine player. I just think people have to limit somewhat of their expectations. This defense is going to have vulnerabilities. There's players on this defense that are going to be flaws. Every team's got it. New England's always had it throughout their Super Bowl runs. But I don't think Levi Wallace is as bad as maybe fans might think he is. But I do think that this game is a big test for him because Sean McVay is going to attack him. We know that. Leslie Frazier knows that. Sean McDermott knows that. I'm interested to see, and I think fans are going to want to keep an eye on Levi Wallace for how he responds from having maybe not as bad as a game as we thought, but having a rough game. He had a rough game. How does he respond against even better talent on the other side of the ball this week? I think it's a big thing to watch.
I think Michael Lucas here in the comments made a great point that, maybe there is a silver lining there that you're able to, maybe have a better technician versus technician matchup that he can find a way to fit with a Robert Woods or a Cooper Kupp better than a physical specimen like Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. So right. I don't know if it's quite that simple, but it's actually an interesting point that maybe this is a way for him to bounce back and his technical acumen, footwork, technique fits better with guys like that he's able to show out. So certainly going to watch that as we go into things.
Yeah, for sure.
So as we kind of pivot and get into our second half sponsor, and we're excited about West Her joining the team here for all season. We're going to be talking with them both in the pregame and postgame shows. Anytime you're out looking for one of those new vehicles at one of their beautiful lots around there, when it gets time, you got to get down to numbers. So let's talk numbers here with West Her. And we've talked about a couple different things. Aaron and I go back and forth a lot on the show about the importance of toxic differential. For anybody who's not familiar, it's the combination of the turnover differential for each team as well as big plays. So there's some debate on exactly where you should draw the line. We've played around with actually even doing our own metric, but we use the standard Brian Billick definition: turnovers and 20-plus yard plays that are in there. We do include some other pieces in turnover. If you go for it on fourth down and turn it over, even a missed field goal and you give the ball back, some of those things I think are important to keep in mind as a turnover, and some big plays, including bigger penalties and things like that come into play. Aaron did some interesting research and found, certainly with both the Rams and the Bills, toxic differential is an important factor.
Yeah, so I think we knew, right? We talked about it a little bit in private after watching both these teams so far this year. The toxic differential was going to be a key player in this game. They're both making big plays, and it showed up in the stats. So I went to Sharp Football. I think it's Sharp Football Data. I'll get it and throw it in the description.com. It's a great site. I love playing around with. Usually by Wednesday, he has all the stats for everything out across the league. He's got some great stats, some great graphics that go with it. But I was looking at toxicity of the offense mostly. This is kind of interesting that they're going up against each other. Both LA and Buffalo have 11 explosive pass plays. That ranks first in league. They're both tied for first. They both also have 11 explosive run plays. I think his run plays aren't Brian Billick's. I think it's more in what you and I talked about. I think it's 10 yards because the Bills haven't had any 20-yard runs. So he does 10-yard runs, and they both have 8, which is ranked at 9. So they both equally so far this year have had what Sharp Football describes as a toxic play, and a positive one. When you look over on the other side of the ball in the defense, LA's got given up 4, which is good for 24th, which 24 is better. So 32 would be the best on defense. Buffalo has 7, which is good for 9th. That's not good in the past. A lot of that has been given up by Levi Wallace, who we just talked about, unfortunately. In the run, Buffalo ranks 30th. So they've only given up 2 big plays in the run. That's a really good thing going into this game. And the Rams have given up 6, which is good for 13th. So middle of the pack. Some of the other stats I want to talk about, this is going to be boring to Greg. I'm sorry. I apologize. I got into this a little bit because I wanted to look a little bit deeper at what kind of toxic plays are being made, because there is a difference, right? When you look at the film, when I watched it didn't seem like the types of plays that LA was making were the same plays that we're seeing from Josh Allen, which are the deep bombs that Josh Allen's getting connected on. You don't see that in LA as much. So I looked at from Sports Information Solutions, SIS, 20-plus air yard plays, which is something that we talked about a lot with Josh Allen over the last couple of years. All season last year. Right now, he ranks second in the NFL in those plays and completions. So he has had 9 attempts, 6 completions. All 6 were on target, 171 air yards, 189 yards total, 1 touchdown, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. Goff ranks 9th, and he has 5 attempts, 4 completions, 4 on target, 103 air yards, 108 yards total, 1 touchdown. That tells me, and I can get into it a little bit more in the 10-plus air yards where Goff ranks 27th, but he has a lot more yards, which tells me that these receivers are getting yards after catch. And when you look over at it, Robert Woods is 9th right now in the league in yards after catch. Cooper Kupp's 13th in the league. The closest Bill is 28th, Isaiah McKenzie. Stephon Diggs is 51st right now in the league in yards after catch. So if the Bills want to win this toxic differential this week, it's going to come down to, and it's something they've struggled with in the past, tackling. It's going to be simple, fundamental is tackling. And that's why I think a guy like Levi Wallace is going to be super important. If he gives up receptions, I'm okay with that. Tackle. Keep it all in front of you. Make the Los Angeles Rams beat you incrementally and move the ball down the field. I think that's the path to victory for Buffalo. Keep everything in front of you. Don't let Robert Woods break off on big 20-yard plays after the catch, because what they're doing is they're rolling Goff out. They've got these high-low concepts. Goff's rolling out, and he's hitting whoever's wide open right in front of him, and those players are making plays with the ball. If you can keep those guys in front of you, and that's, again, why the linebackers are going to be big. Milano and Edmonds' ability to cover in those spaces and make good tackles is going to come in huge if either one of them are available. So I think this leads well for the Buffalo Bills, who their toxic plays are coming from making big plays, right? Like the toxic plays are coming from shots, which if we're going to win that differential, I'd rather be the team where you're going up against 2 good defenses. I'd rather be the team that has been doing better at getting the shots than the one that's going to rely on having to break tackles against a pretty sound defense overall.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to be able to identify where that's going to come into play, because it's so impactful whether you have Edmonds and Milano. So if they're able to get those crossers going back and forth, they're able to get behind Klein and Dotson, and all of a sudden now you get Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp with a running start, that's where those things have come from. That's where they've been able to put those things together. The Rams, ripped apart the Eagles, who have some talent on their defense. I know that they haven't played well, and that they're kind of a mess right now in what they're doing, but there's talent on that team, and especially on that defense and the defensive line. And the fact that they weren't able to get to Goff, they weren't able to get any pressure, I think it's going to be huge if we have Edmonds and Milano there. If you have Edmonds and he's able to take up all that space in the middle of the field, his 7-foot wingspan, his range back and forth, it's so impactful in just the visual space of what the quarterback can see. And it just takes away, think about him and think about a Preston Brown, Preston Brown was like 5'9" with short little squatty arms. Tremaine Edmonds is like the predator in the middle there with a 7-foot wingspan and also incredibly faster than Preston Brown. That difference of where he can go in 2 or 3 quick steps either way versus what the traditional older, I joke with Preston Brown, but London Fletcher, another good linebackers in the middle. He is such a deterrent in the middle of that field. And you see him tip those passes up in the air. You see him able to get hands on balls. It makes such a big difference in what they can do. I really hope that we can get them back. Milano for his coverage ability, Edmonds for his range in the middle of the zone, because it's going to discourage some of those things and not leave, Levi trailing because you had Dotson or Klein bite up and open up a huge open space. When Levi is able to be there and maybe needs a step, when Edmonds can give him that space and coverage, you can let Levi catch up and get a step back to be able to get with his guy. Those are going to be the critical pieces here of whether we're able to see it or not. Yeah, and both linebackers have, I think, enough tape of good in coverage and good ball skills that teams are just, the presence alone either makes you hesitate or makes you not want to challenge it as much as, Dotson and Klein, you look at the tape, you're going to challenge that. If you're going to challenge any part of this defense, that's who you're going to try to pick on, especially in the screen game, which Jourdan brought up is a new
piece of this offense that we haven't seen in the past, that they're trying to get the running backs out in the screen game. And that, after Eric's tweet about looking for that this weekend, that is something that concerns me, and much less so if it's Milano and Edmonds or Edmonds.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to track as the week goes. And as we kind of pull these things together, we'll see where the trending goes for each of the guys that are practicing, who's back in there. Hopefully that list trims down a lot and we get a lot more full participants tomorrow. So we'll see where those things come from. Now it's time to put our word out there for the game. What are you predicting?
So I already tipped my hat. I do think that the Bills are going to walk out with a win. I can't. They're playing hot right now. I'm not ready to start being the Debbie Downer fan and predicting them for a loss. And the thing is, this is a good enough team where I think I look at the schedule and I've said it all along that I think they can win almost any of these games if they play the right game. I do think fans are going to be a little bit disappointed that want to see Diggs versus Ramsey. I don't think we're going to get that matchup. But I think some people that might have a big day are tight ends. I think that it's time to get those guys going. We saw the big play from Dawson Knox ended in a fumble. The team needs to get Dawson Knox going, in my opinion. They really have to. I'd like to see some production from Tyler Kroft even. I think that it's a time to get those guys going. But I also think Cole Beasley is going to continue to have a sneaky good season like he's been having so far. And I think he has a big day as well. And maybe we don't see as big of a day from the guys on the outside. I do think they're going to try to eliminate some of that and might be able to do it with some success. But I do expect there's too many weapons on this team, I think, for them to totally eliminate it. And they saw it in Dallas, right? Dallas has a lot of weapons, but I don't like really anything Mike McCarthy does. So I'm not really sure that even though he has all the weapons, I don't think they're as well coached. And I think Brian Daboll has this team and the continuity. I think they're doing some special things. And we saw it last weekend when they get going. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a shootout, not a big 30-point crazy shootout. I think you'll see a little bit of a shootout here this weekend. And I agree with Jourdan. I think it's going to be a field goal game, but I have the Bills. I have them 27-24, Bills winning by a field goal. I just think I'm hoping that one or both linebackers are back, and I think that is going to make enough of a difference to keep this defense from letting up the big plays. They haven't really been a team that lets up big plays in the past when all their pieces are in place. I think that that's going to be the advantage Buffalo has, is eliminating the toxic differential plays, solid tackling, not letting a run game get going, and really it cues on the linebackers being back.
I think that's a really smart way to look at it, in that we'll see where those things come from. It's shocking to now look at teams like this that have put up a lot of points and have, some star players on their defense. I'm curious if that's the way that's going to play out. I think that for the first time in 20 years, the Bills can get into shootouts and survive. The Bills can outscore people. I think that's what that's going to take this weekend. I think that even if we see Edmonds and Milano back, I don't know that we're going to get them at 100%. I'm nervous about a re-aggravation with Matt Milano and that hamstring. All it takes is one big hit on that shoulder for Tremaine Edmonds. I think we're going to have to outscore this team. I think it's going to be a hotly contested one. I think Jordan's right that it's going to come down to a field goal, but she picked the wrong team. I think it's going to be on the high end. I'm picking Buffalo 38-35. I think this is going to be a big, high-scoring game, a lot of touchdowns back and forth. I don't think we can control Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. I don't. I think Tyler Higbee's going to have a good game. I'm not worried about their backfield. I don't think they have anyone special there. Darrell Henderson can break one if we give him the space. If they get him out into some of the screen game, I'm a little bit nervous. I don't know that coming across the middle and dragging Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, they do, make sure you guys are checking out the matchup show. Eric does a fantastic job showing the layering and the route combinations that they put together to be able to get your attention with, Higbee coming and curling over and Robert Woods trailing right behind him, and they have it set up, and you got to pick your poison, and one of them's going to be open. And I think that Goff's going to go to that over and over again. It's going to take a special play from an Ed Oliver, and I think that's the kind of thing we're going to see, is that she's not wrong in who has the ball last or where those things come from. I think it's going to be interesting to be able to see, can someone come and make a play at the end of the game, and that's where we're going to need to see Mario Addison or Trent Murphy or Jerry Hughes or Ed caliber, getting in there, stripping the ball, getting maybe a strip sack that opens things up. It's going to be interesting, but I'm going to pick a shootout. The Bills bringing it home 38-35, and I'm excited to be able to see where we can get that from.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something we really didn't even get into on the Bills side of the ball is pressure. And Jared Goff has not performed well. And we saw a comment from the defensive coordinator of the Rams of saying, hey, they got to do a better job getting pressure on Allen this week because they haven't gotten pressure. And I agree. I think that's a little bit coach speak because I put out a tweet that was like, does anyone want to tell him that Allen's actually done better under pressure? Like he's performed pretty
legitimately better. I think his stats are better against pressure than in a clean pocket, which that's small sample size noise, but it is.
It is, but Goff has not been great under pressure. So I do think that it's going to, I agree with you that it's going to take some of that. It's going to take some pressure from Jerry Hughes and from that line. They did a good job last week, but Fitz did well under pressure. So there wasn't a whole lot that changed the outcome. But if they get that similar type of pressure against this quarterback, I think that can be a difference maker in this game.
So Taylor asking, do you think we can get D-line pressure without blitzing a lot? I think that's completely dependent on Milano and Edmonds. If it's Milano and Edmonds, we don't need to do that because they're so good in coverage. They can fake the blitz. We can do some of the zone blitz fake outs. Honestly, if it's Klein and Dodson, I'd rather see more blitzing because the odds of them getting home on a blitz versus hoping they hold up in coverage, I'd rather roll the dice a little bit more and be a little bit more aggressive with them. So we'll see where that goes. But if it's Milano and Edmonds, our scheme is not blitz heavy. It's never going to be blitz heavy, and it's going to be something that we need to be able to get home with the four there and use our back seven who are fantastic in coverage to be able to hold up.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see a lot of blitzing, particularly either way. I think they're going to stick to that scheme. And I think what you'll see, though, is which four, right? It won't be maybe necessarily the four defensive linemen. You'll see a lineman dropping back into coverage and they'll bring somebody else. We've seen them kind of do stuff like that. And I think they're going to try to do a little bit of that to confuse Jared Goff and get a little additional pressure on him. We know that Poyer can bring it. We know that Taron Johnson can bring it on the run plays. We've seen a lot of that. Sarah Neal can come out of that nickel look and bring it. So I think we'll see some of that type of stuff where they're still bringing four, but it's somebody coming off where you're not expecting them to in the disguise.
So Griffin asking, do you think Levi Wallace will be picked on again this week? I don't think it's this week. I think that whoever's opposite Trey White's always going to get more targets.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the facts. Trey White, so it's such a discrepancy of how good Trey White is versus the guys on the other side, no matter who it is, even when it's Josh Norman. I think when Josh Norman's back, he's going to see a lot of those targets.
Yeah. C.S. Wilson asking a good question here. Does Allen have the ability to read the new Rams D? I do think that's different. I do think that they've thrown a lot of different things out there so far already that we haven't seen in the past, a different look from what that Wade Phillips defense was and the way that they're able to, just kind of switch it up there. Aaron, you touched on it earlier talking with Jourdan. This is a top-heavy defense from a name recognition standpoint, but there are some underrated talents on there that I think we're going to need to be smart about how we approach them. Yeah,
and they're different than the Sean McDermott defense, but I will compare into the sense that they're going to throw some confusing looks at him, and similar to what they saw with Carson Wentz, and you'll see it more, I think, on the matchup show. They're going to throw some confusing looks that are going to make Allen think a little bit post-snap, where last week, I think pretty much everything he saw pre-snap, we knew they were going man for most of the game. You saw that in the Allen film breakdown. And that's where Allen's going to thrive right now as a young quarterback is if I know what you're doing pre-snap and I know where my guys are, my guys can beat you, we're going to win those games more times than not. I think there's going to be a little bit more challenge for Allen. You'll probably see some slower processing from him on some of these weird looks. But the thing about Allen, and we saw it in the Allen film room, is even when that all kind of changes for him, he's so dynamic, both with his ability to move within the pocket, but then when things break down, that ability we didn't see last week, but we saw in week one, the ability of his legs to make some things happen that I think he can overcome some of those plays where as long as he doesn't do the hero ball or throw into crazy double coverage, I think he can overcome it with some of his other gifts. And that's what all of us Bills fans kind of hope for is he overcomes it with the right tools and not the wrong ones.
So our final question for tonight comes from the Brave Pop-Tart, which is just a fantastic name. I'll answer any question from the Brave Pop-Tart. Do you think Josh hits 300 yards again? For anyone who isn't aware, the Bills have not had 3 consecutive 300-yard games since Jim Kelly in 1992. I think it happens again. I think that this Rams defense is a little more susceptible to the run, so it's not something there. But last week, that was the MO as well, that you had a highly paid secondary and a team giving up a ton of rushing yards. And what do the Bills do? They came out slinging the rock. And I think that they're simply showing this is what the offense that Brian Daboll has designed, and the steps and maturity and development that Josh Allen has taken. This is going to be that test. This is how we're going to find that out is this really the new Bills offense and what they have? I do think Josh Allen can break 300 yards again, which is crazy to think after never doing it, that now he could do it 3 games in a row.
Yeah, I think it was like Buffalo Stats and Graphs. One of those Bill Stats and Graphs, one of those Twitter pages put out some stat that showed the difference in teams last year. And you saw really the biggest difference was Seattle and Buffalo, of teams that were more run heavy last year and then have switched over to pass happy this year. And I know it's a small sample size, but I don't think that that's an accident. I think that the Bills have come out and have asserted themselves as a passing team. I think you'll see pretty much that 60-40 split, give or take percentages here and there for games and the way games shape out. But I think they want to go into the game attacking with the pass. That's where primarily their weapons are. That is where they're most dangerous. That's where they're able to make those 20-plus yard plays, those toxic differential plays. So I think they're going to try to attack that. And if it's anywhere close to Greg's estimation of a game, yes. If the Bills are scoring 30-plus points, I think Josh Allen is definitely throwing for 300 yards. Even in my estimation of close to 30 points, I think it's pretty hard to not in the league nowadays. And I think that that's just the way this offense is designed going forward.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what they come away with, how we're able to kind of put together a good matchup and scheme with a talented team. This is, like you said, this is the litmus test. This is the real proof of what kind of team we've put together here and what kind of season this is going to be. This stretch, these next 4 games are going to show us a lot as we go through this run with the Rams, the Raiders, the Titans, the Chiefs. It's going to show a lot of what this team is capable of and what's going on. And I think that this next run, the teams are all, maybe 1 loss or 17-3, something like that. This next stretch, it's really going to prove a lot of where this team is and what the future is going to be. As we're getting through here, if you guys haven't listened or heard, we brought 2 new exciting shows into the Cover One portfolio. Yeah. It's going to be awesome. Anyone who hasn't seen it before, Anthony Prohaska, previously of Wagons and Warpass, is going to be starting the Disguised Coverage podcast. Is going to be on Tuesday night, and the team, Anthony, Eric, and Sterling over at the Hoof, are going to be joining us on Tuesdays and Fridays going forward. It's going to be fantastic. Really excited to have those guys aboard. Cover One's going to have you covered all week long between the film breakdown, the matchup show, our preview and post-game show. Those guys on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to have it for you all week long. We're going to be able to keep you filled with content from start to finish. Really excited to be able to have them going. Thank you to our sponsors from Uncle Jumbo's, West Her, our friends over at the Keller Williams Realty Group with Paul Bannock. Make sure you guys are checking them out. Aaron, where can the good people find you?
Yeah, you can find me here. My name's here somewhere, Aaron Quinn 716. You can find me on Twitter. I'm on there more than I should be, back at it. But I want to kind of, on top of what Greg said there, we're super excited for these new podcasts that come on the network. But really, all these people that are here in the chat and all the people that are listening to this, we can't have done this and bring on other podcasts and kind of build this network of Bills content without you. And all these shows that we produce, it's because of the fans. And it blows my mind every time when I see the numbers of people watching and the engagement we get, that people listen to 2 schmucks like us sit around and talk about the Bills. And I really do appreciate it. I think it's fantastic, and it keeps this content continuing to flow, and we're always trying to get better. So shout out to you guys, the fans. You guys are awesome, and you keep us going, because it is a lot of work, and we wouldn't do this work if it wasn't for the response we get.
So thank you guys. You can find me at Greg Tompsett, GregTompsett. Go and find us. Give us a rating. Give us a review. Tell a neighbor. Tell a friend. Tell somebody in line at the grocery store to come and find cover1.net. Download the Cover One app and follow us on all social media platforms. You have been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.